Hi, welcome to Aphrodite Hills Golf Resort here in Cyprus. My name is Chris Wright, and in today's video we're answering one of your questions via Facebook on how to relieve a little bit more tension in the golf swing. So I posted on my social media platforms if anybody had any suggestions on content or any video topics they'd like me to do whilst I was out here in Cyprus. On Facebook, Chris Henninger-Smith asked the question of how can you relieve tension when on the golf course in your golf swing. Now, I thought this was a good question to answer because I suspected that many of my viewers or many of the people watching this video would be struggling with the same sort of thing. You know, you're going to find that many of the shots you hit on the golf course, you feel a little bit tense over the golf ball. You maybe don't feel quite as relaxed as you feel you should. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to give Chris 2 or 3 different little techniques that he can try on the golf course. Ultimately, what we'd like to try and have happen is that these things happen fairly naturally on the golf course. But if they're not happening naturally now, we need to start the process in practice and build good habits so that when you do ultimately go on the golf course, they are just happening naturally. So the first thing I want to talk to Chris about really is his breathing, because that can be a massive, massive influence on how much tension you have in your body. If I take a big deep breath in, everything rises, my rib cage rises, and I certainly don't feel as relaxed as I would be if I breathed out. So the first thing I don't want Chris to do is take a big deep breath inwards and hold that as he's making his golf swing. All too often I'll see golfers at setup where it would appear that their shoulders are too high because they've taken this big deep breath in, that raises everything up, and I suddenly feel a lot tighter across this top section here. So you'll often see, you know, a lot of the elite golfers, and it's quite rare that we have the microphones that close, but sometimes when we do have the microphones close, you'll hear them sort of, you know, take a big deep breath out, and that's really, really important. That's going to let everything settle down. It's going to put you in a lot more relaxed position. So again, like I said at the start, this might not happen now, and it's very difficult to go on the course and actually think about breathing, but you know, practice. If you do have time to practice, and you know, if you're trying to get better at the game, we do need to practice, doesn't always have to be mechanical changes or working on ball flight. It can be things like, you know, working on your breathing, working through your pre-shot routine, which we're going to come to in a moment. So the first thing would be, let's start the process of thinking about the breathing. Let's make sure that we've taken a breath out and I'm very, very relaxed. I certainly haven't taken a huge breath in and I'm not holding that. So breathing, that's going to be our first point. The second thing would be just a pre-shot routine. And again, this is something that needs to be worked at the driving range. If we are in a situation where we feel a little bit tense, we want to try and do something that's familiar. It's something that we've been used to. So trying to work on a pre-shot routine is going to be very, very useful for you. Now, a pre-shot routine doesn't have to be things like place your bag down, you know, select your club, have a drink. It doesn't have to be that detailed. All that stuff doesn't have to be included in that pre-shot routine. What I would do is actually I would make, you know, my pre-shot routine start from when I've selected the club and I've worked out the distance. So I'm stood on this par 3 here. It's about 195 yards. I'm going to work out the distances, where the trouble is, select my club, what type of shot I want to hit, etc, etc. I'm going to make all those decisions. Once I've made those decisions, for me, my pre-shot routine starts. So I'm just going to talk you through what I do. So the first thing I would do is I would start from behind the golf ball and I make a practice swing with a feel of what I'm trying to do. So what I mean by that is if I was trying to hit a fade into this flag, my practice swing would be me feeling like I make a fade golf swing. Now you'll notice here that these aren't full speed and they're not full length because my practice swings are there to create a feel. If I was hitting a right to left shot, my practice swing would be a little bit different. I might feel there's a little bit different release in there. I might feel like I'm hitting a lower shot and I might want to feel like my follow through is a bit different. So my practice swing is to create a feel. Once I've done that, I'm going to hold the club in my right hand and I'm going to stand directly behind my ball. And as I'm standing by my ball, I'm now visualizing my ball going from its target, from its position onto the green. And when I'm saying visualize that, I'm thinking about everything. How high is the ball going? Where's it starting? How much curve is on it? What does it do when it lands on the green? Which way does it spin? Which way does it bounce? Really in detail, trying to visualize that ball going through the air. Once I've done that, I'm then going to walk in and take up my starting position. I've also picked my intermediate target in front of the ball, which I'm going to align my club face to at the start, build my stance around that, and then I'm going to take another look. So I won't go ahead and hit it, but you can see my pre-shot routine. I do that every single time. So it's important that we start to get that into your golf game. Go to the practice area, work on it, start to think about what needs to be in there, and then more when you're on the golf course and you're feeling a little bit tense, you can revert to that and it's going to put you in a state of, you know, familiarity. You've done that before, you know what it feels like, you're going through a process. Third thing would be just to start to introduce a waggle. You know, let's make sure that if you look at my setup, once my club goes down, it's aligned. After that, the club head really doesn't stay still too often. Okay, I'm trying to keep it moving. If we make some small movements with the club head like I'm doing there, we'd often find that helps us keep the arms a little bit tension free. We don't tend to strangle the golf club. We don't tend to create too much tension. The golfers who place the club down and it stays on the ground would often have a lot too much tension in their arms this way. So that's our third point there, is to just start to create a waggle. Now, as I say, practice these because it's difficult to go on the course, think about the breathing, create a pre-shot routine and focus on a waggle. There's a lot of things going on there. So we'd like it to happen naturally on the golf course, but that really starts in the practice phase, working on it there. Last thing, this is the last thing, and I would only suggest you do this if you're struggling with the other two, is start to hover the golf club. Now, a lot of golfers do this with a driver, and that's fine when the ball's teed up. It's a little bit more, let's say, off-putting when the ball's on the ground with an iron. However, it can help a lot of golfers. When I say hover, it doesn't need to be 5 inches off the ground. You can literally just take the weight of the golf club so it's hardly off the ground. But again, what that's going to do is it's going to take the tension out of the arms and it's going to give you a sense of the weight of the golf club. And that would be something that I would sort of say, maybe do this as a last resort if you're struggling with the other three. So if that was me trying to hover the golf club, I'd take my setup and then I would literally just raise it slightly off the ground. And already I feel like I have to hold that club a lot lighter and I get a little bit more awareness of the weight of the golf club. So if you're struggling with tension on the golf course, you feel a little bit tight over the golf ball, I wouldn't say there's one thing that's going to help it. There's processes we want to go through. You know, let's go through a pre-shot routine. Let's focus on our breathing. Let's introduce a waggle. Let's maybe hover the club, especially with the driver, it's going to help. All these things are going to help you create a better situation for yourself and get you a little bit more focused on what you're trying to do as opposed to worrying about other things getting a bit tense. Right, let me give this one a go. So I've got 190 odd yards, 194 I think it is. And I'm going to do exactly what I said. I'm going to try and hit a little fade into this flag here. So I'm going to practice what I preach. I'm going to go through my routine. I'm going to feel like a little fade, so my practice swings are me trying to feel like I work the club a little bit more to the left. So I'm going to visualise that ball flight starting on that tree. I'm just going to go see if I can execute it. Okay, and that's pretty much typically my miss there. Started where I wanted it and didn't cut back, so that's probably just fractionally missed the green. It might be just on the green, but it didn't fade back. But the strike was good and that wasn't a bad swing. It's 190 odd yards and I'm probably just off the green, so I'll be not too unhappy with that. So hopefully that helps Chris, and hopefully that helps any of you out there who are struggling with the same kind of issues, a little bit too much tension in the body. Let's employ some of those things in practice, get it to the point where it's fairly natural on the golf course. You'll just revert to type and hopefully you'll get rid of some of that tension. Thank you for watching. Big thanks to Aphrodite Hills for having me out here for a few days. Big thanks to Golf Breaks for making this all happen. Very much appreciate your help. And all the usual stuff is down below the videos. That's the like button, that's the comments box, and there's a link there also to subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. There's loads more videos going up each week, so click that link and you'll just get a notification and it means you won't miss any of the new content. Thank you again, and hopefully we'll see you back here again soon.